By the time this video ends, you'll see how a single deceptive move completely turned the tide of the Persian War. You will see how one man used his enemy's deepest desires to trap them in a deadly choke point. History books love to talk about brave kings and massive armies, but they often skip the shadows. They skip the covert operations that actually decided the fate of empires. The Battle of Salamis is famous, but it almost never happened. The Greek alliance was crumbling. The generals wanted to run away. Athens was already burned to the ground. Total surrender was just hours away. But Themistocles refused to lose. He knew that to save Greece, he had to force his own allies to fight. And he couldn't do it with a speech. He had to use a secret agent. I've spent years analyzing ancient military strategies and the hidden figures behind them. Today, we are diving deep into the accounts of Herodotus and Aeschylus to uncover the true story of Sisinus. He was a man without a country, but he held the weight of the world on his shoulders. It is the night of September 24th, 480 BC. The air is cold. The sea outside the Salamis Straits is rough. A small wooden boat cuts through the dark waves. Two men row silently. In the back sits Sisinus. He is a slave. He is the tutor to Themistocles' sons. He is responsible for keeping the boys safe in the busy streets of Athens. He is watchful, firm, and completely loyal. Now, he is on his most dangerous mission. He is heading straight into the heart of the enemy camp. Here is the catch. The Greek fleet is in total chaos. Just hours earlier, the generals held a massive meeting. The Peloponnesian commanders were terrified. They saw the Persian army marching along the coast. They saw the massive Persian fleet right outside the bay. They didn't want to fight for Athens anymore. Athens was already gone. They wanted to sail away to the isthmus and defend their own homes. The Spartan commander, Eurybiades, completely lost control of his men. The sailors were whispering in corners. They were packing their things. They refused to obey orders. The Greek alliance was dead in the water. Think of it this way. Themistocles was a desperate man. He knew his fellow Greeks were about to run. He tried to convince them with words, but it failed. So he decided to think the unthinkable. He slipped out of the meeting. He found Sisinus. He gave him his secret orders. Then, he sent him across the bay into enemy territory. Now, why does this matter? Because the Persians were waiting at Phaleron Bay. They had 700 warships. They were hungry for a final victory. Sisinus landed his small boat on the beach. He was surrounded by enemy soldiers. He asked to speak to the commanders. He looked them in the eye and delivered the message. He told them the Greeks were terrified. He told them the alliance was breaking apart. He said the ships were going to flee in the middle of the night. Then came the big lie. Sisinus claimed that Themistocles had switched sides. He said the Athenian general wanted the great king Xerxes to win. He urged the Persians to attack immediately. If they waited until morning, the Greeks would be gone. But if they attacked now, they could catch them in their sleep. But it gets worse. The Persians had to decide right then if this slave was telling the truth. The key to a great lie is telling people exactly what they want to hear. The Persians desperately wanted a Greek traitor. They remembered how traitors helped them win at Thermopylae. They knew the Greek council was divided, and everything else Sisinus said was completely true. The Greeks were fighting amongst themselves. The Peloponnesians did want to flee. The only fake part was Themistocles' loyalty. Themistocles didn't want to join Persia. He wanted a fight. The Persian commanders ran the message to King Xerxes. The great king was delighted. It seemed too good to be true, but it fit his plans perfectly. He had already wanted to attack. This news just forced his hand on the timing. And in naval warfare, timing is everything. Xerxes swallowed the bait. He didn't even lock Sisinus up. Usually the Persians tied up deserters and tortured them for information, but they let Sisinus get back into his boat and row away. Why? Because they needed him. They thought he was the secret go-between. They expected the Athenian ships to turn around and surrender as soon as the battle started. It was a classic trap, but the Persians were the ones walking into it. Midnight arrived. The order went out through the Persian camp. The sailors were woken up in the dark. 700 ships launched into the night. They rowed quietly toward the narrow straits of Salamis. Let's pause the story for a second. Imagine the sheer scale of this move. Hundreds of massive warships moving through the dark, trying to block every exit. If you are enjoying this deep dive into ancient psychological warfare, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We break down the greatest hidden strategies in history every single week. Now, back to the beach at Salamis. While the Persians were rowing into position, the Greek generals were still screaming at each other inside the council hall. They had no idea the trap was closing. Suddenly, a new figure arrived on the island. It was Aristides. He was Themistocles' greatest political enemy. Years ago, the citizens of Athens got tired of Aristides being called the Just, so they kicked him out of the city. But when the Persians invaded, he returned to help. On this night, Aristides had been away on a religious mission. He sailed back to Salamis under the cover of darkness. As his ship rounded the peninsula, he looked out across the water. His eyes went wide. The sea was full of Persian hulls. He had to dodge enemy patrols just to land on the beach. He ran straight to the council hall. He didn't go inside. He called Themistocles out into the dark. "We are shut in by the enemy," Aristides said. "The relocation is no longer an option. We are surrounded." Themistocles couldn't hide his joy. He looked at his bitter rival and smiled. "You should know," Themistocles confessed. "The Medes are doing this on my initiative." Imagine the look on Aristides' face. Themistocles had actually invited the enemy to attack them. He had forced the Greeks into a corner. Now they had only two choices. They could fight or they could surrender. There was no more running away. But Themistocles was a master strategist. He knew the other generals hated him. If he walked into the meeting and told them the Persians were coming, they would think he was lying just to make them stay. So, he asked Aristides to deliver the news instead. Everyone trusted Aristides the Just. Aristides walked into the screaming match inside the hall. He raised his hand and told the commanders the brutal truth. Xerxes' ships had ringed the straits. They were completely blocked. The generals refused to believe him. They thought it was another Athenian trick. They argued and shouted, refusing to accept that they were trapped. Then, the final piece of the puzzle fell into place. A trireme from the island of Tenos emerged from the dark. Its commander, Panetius, had just deserted the Persian fleet. He landed on the shore and ran to the council. He confirmed everything Aristides had said. He told them he had just escaped the Persian line. The enemy was right outside. The debate was instantly over. The combined word of an honest Athenian and a desperate defector settled it. The Greek commanders finally realized they had no choice. They stopped arguing about the isthmus. They ordered their men to prepare for battle. It was now 4 a.m. 70,000 Greek soldiers were shaken awake in the dark. They scrambled to their ships. They grabbed their oars. Their hearts were pounding. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and trapped in a narrow channel. But they were exactly where Themistocles wanted them. The trap was set. By morning, the Persians would realize they hadn't caught a fleeing enemy. They had rowed directly into a slaughterhouse. If you want to see exactly how this brutal naval battle played out in the narrow waters, click on the video right here. We break down the brilliant tactical moves that destroyed Xerxes' empire forever.